So I come to this work through my own blood, sweat, and tears. And I'm 50 this year, and 30 years ago, I was diagnosed with a terminal illness and told that I had basically a 90% chance of dying within 5 years. So that was my warrior's practice. And I somehow, walking out of the hospital with my father, looked up at him and said, Dad, I guess 90% is good news because somebody's got to be in the 10%. And I turned that whole medical journey into a spiritual exploration of like what was going on in my mind that my body is doing this. And I had this kind of naive notion that if I meditated, somehow a miracle would happen and I would keep on living. And strangely enough, I meditated and a miracle happened and I kept on living. So I lived another 17 years after that. But and you can watch my TED Talk to see if I live in the end. But what I learned from that was that I had to face my own fear and anxiety and rage about being 20 years old and being handed a death sentence. And in that process of working through all the stuff that was going on inside me, I found ways to create choices that that weren't apparent in the beginning, and that really kind of influenced how I see my work. And so, another question I often ask people, using the great philosopher B. Spears as the inspiration, is think about something you've done or said recently that in retrospect now that you regret. And if you could rewind time, you would do something different. And if you think about that event, like, who paid the price for that? And what was the cost for that? And if you could do it again, what would you have done differently? Everybody will have something, right? Everybody will have something. And what we focus on is then what was happening inside you that led to that moment, right? And my view around mindful leadership starts with result. And what is the result you keep generating? And is that a result you want? And so let's backtrack into, how did you get that result? At the Drucker School, we say that you have two games you have to play, or you have to master, right? Like, you have to understand, obviously, be effective in the outer world, right? You have to produce results. You have to have good relationships, right? You have to have the skills that make you effective in your work. And at the same time, you have to understand what is going on inside you. What are your belief systems? What are your emotional reactions? What is your body telling you? And how do you fuse those two things in real time? So let me give you an example. This is a fresh example straight from this past semester. I have a student who is a senior leader at an athletic wear company. He hires a very talented marketing person from a major competitor. They are in a meeting, and this meeting is not going well. And in the process of the meeting, my student realizes he is blocking the action of this new colleague at every turn. And he said, instead of listening and collaborating with each other, we're just talking. They take a break. My student goes back to his office, asks himself the question, am I getting the result I want? Are my actions producing the result I want? And the answer was clearly no. And he asked himself, okay, what's going on inside me? What's going on inside him was that I want to maintain control of this situation, and that this new person's information is threatening to me, right? He was really honest with himself. He goes back into the meeting and he says, I know you have a lot to teach me, and I know I'm resistant to learning. So what I'm going to do from now on is just sit back and listen and allow you to teach me something new that I don't know. Because to be honest with you, I feel really threatened by it. That act of candor about what was going on inside him completely changes the dynamic in that meeting, and it turned out very well, right? So oftentimes, having a robust understanding of what is going on inside you really is the kind of secret weapon, or, it's in business speak, our new leadership competence that really helps kind of open up situations and transform results. One thing I like to do is ask people, how are you using your energy? And this simple map is a way of clarifying that, right? So you have the red zone where you're kind of in overdrive, you're running at top speed, or you may be in a state of aggression or defense, like the student I just talked about. Or you might have no energy and you don't want to get out of bed. You don't feel motivated, or you're exhausted, which is, I think, where a lot of us are, frankly. And then there's the green zone in the middle, which is kind of in optimal shape. It doesn't necessarily mean you're calm, but it does mean you are in control of yourself and you have some kind of self-awareness. And ideally, that's where we should be. And it's also kind of where we are. It's our healthiest sort of place. So understanding, okay, are you in some kind of defense state or retreat state or freeze state is really essential in understanding, like, how is that influencing what you perceive as your choices? Because if you're looking at the world through the lens of threat, then you're going to see nothing but threat, and that is going to reduce your capacity to respond. I like to say that reactivity reduces choices, right? Reactivity reduces options. And when you're in a state of reactivity, you are limiting what's possible for you or for your team or for your family or whatnot.